All right, today I am here with Blair Halver, one of my mentors in real estate investing, and spending time with him. It's been great to see his mindset around building businesses, learning from mentors, and really just modeling his whole system into my business. So Blair, welcome to the show today. How are you?
Oh, thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's talk a little bit about what exactly it is that you do. For those who are in real estate investing, they probably see your ads all over the place, right? You're everywhere, it seems. So what exactly is your system, and what type of real estate investing do you do?
Yeah, we do mostly creative financing stuff. We'll do a few wholesale deals here and there, and every now and then I might get a wild hair and do a fix and flip, but I try to minimize those. It just like unless there's a big payday in it, I just kind of stay away from that. It's just easier to make more money just pushing paperwork instead of swinging a hammer and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's all about creative financing, seller financing, just being able to I guess, take any seller situation that comes your way and figuring out how to solve their problem and make some money in the process.
So we'll get into that a little bit more, but I get all the time from realtors and from lawyers, you can't do that. That's not possible. And so I think there's an underlying belief about what's possible to do, and that stops a lot of people. So I think we're going to get into that a little bit more. But I have invested in your course, and it's been phenomenal. So I want to highly recommend that. If you want to give a little bit of a sales pitch about what makes your course different and how it works, go ahead.
I don't even know. I don't know what to say. I appreciate you coming into the course and bringing your positive attitude to the group and everything else. And I really appreciate that. And I thank you for your kind words about the course and everything. I feel like coming from a marketing background, I'm all about traffic or, getting leads in and then converting them as quickly and easily as possible. And we're always looking for new ways to drive down the cost per lead and the resultant cost per deal. And so, our cost per lead times our conversion rate, from a marketing guy's perspective, I mean, this is like what I live and breathe every day. It's like, how can we get, make more money with less effort and less investment, less capital outlay? That's the whole thing.
Yeah, and I love that paradigm, and I've definitely learned that from you. I had the understanding the financing part down and the real estate part down and the returns and understood all that, but I didn't have the systems and structure to this level that I have now. And I literally just got a message on my watch a couple of minutes ago that a Facebook lead came in.
Nice.
So I was thinking maybe while we're on the episode, we'll have somebody pop into my system, and it'll be good proof for you. So yeah, I appreciate, everything you put together. It's been amazing. You've obviously had some success, your ClickFunnels awards in the background. So
oh yeah,
I want to talk about mentors and modeling, because on your sales webinar, you talk about that. And I know, seeing the work that you've done, and you talked about some of your mentors, how have mentors and modeling their behavior, how has that set you up for success?
It's when I started out, I would see all these guys doing big business and, having success in whatever area I was focusing on in entrepreneurship at the time. And I would want to try to see what they're doing and then try to do it myself. But I'd never really had as much success doing that as when I started actually just going to them and paying them for their knowledge, whether it was just an online course or their book or whatever, or going deeper with them. Like one of my main mentors is Ron LeGrand. He's, real estate guru for 35 years now. I spent the last 3 years going down to visit with him. I'm in a couple of his mastermind groups and went through all of his training boot camps at least twice and all this stuff. And the biggest thing for me was not just how to do all these different real estate transactions tactically, but what I wanted to learn from him was his mindset and how he thinks and looks at not just deals, but business and life in general, for that matter, and just, embody that whole attitude of, we're here like bending reality to our will. There are no rules. Like, you were talking earlier about how people will tell you, oh, you can't do that, that's illegal. Well, if you actually dig in, you find that, none of the stuff that we do is illegal. It's certainly not conventional, right? But, definitely doesn't mean it's not effective and it can't be done. And, so there's a lot of misconceptions about creative financing, what we do. But in terms of your question there about modeling, I think there's a verse in Proverbs that's like, now I'm going to paraphrase this, but like the whole thing is like, get wisdom, right? Whatever, even if it costs you everything you have, get wisdom. Just go pay for it, get it, acquire wisdom, no matter how much it costs you, however you have to do it. Because that then will like feed, blessings throughout the rest of your life, right? And that's what I've found anyway. And so I've paid Ron LeGrand more money than I care to mention, but have I made more back from? Of course.
Yeah, and I've definitely followed that advice over the last couple of years, and been lucky enough to be around some of the the world's top hypnotists or NLP practitioners, and train and invest in your system. And when you learn a skill, you have it forever. Like when you learn how to get leads and market into your system, like you have that forever. When you learn how to public speak, or you learn how to influence somebody, like that never goes away, right? And so it's gets a return on investment forever. So, the real estate business that we do, it's really, there's so many metaphors and lessons for life in it, because I remember like, I'm a guy that likes to play by my own rules. And I thought, I read, Nothing Down, Robert Allen's book. And I was like, I'm going to do deals with no money down. And so I would just ask sellers for financing, and, the realtors or the lawyers would be like, well, people don't really do that. And then, I got it. And I would get banks to give me loans when everyone said that they wouldn't. And I get sellers to finance my down payments. And so, what was possible just shifted. And it's like that in life as well, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like you see my strategically placed ClickFunnels award back here, right?
I see that.
So, and it goes back to like the first year, and before I got into doing the whole real estate thing, I used to work in television. I did sound recording for different reality TV shows and unscripted talk shows and that sort of thing. But the first year I made over $100,000 in that career. It was like a light bulb went off, and it was like, and now all of a sudden I can't go back, right? Mm-hmm. Well, same kind of thing happens at all different levels, right? So you hit that 6-figure mark and you're like, well, shoot, that was easy. Like, what was I stressing about, right? And now, we've sold like $1 million worth of my old Dealbot service. That's what that award is for. And then I look back, and it took me like 9 years to sell $1 million of that old service. And then, it's like they say, like the first million is the hardest. Well, we've already made our next million, in a year's time, as opposed to 9 years, so it just gets faster and faster. It gets easier and easier. And it really is true. I read that book by T. Boone Pickens. It says the first billion is the hardest. So, it kind of goes along with this theme here. But yeah, it's interesting how, and, Tony Robbins talks about the wealth thermostat, right?
Yeah,
it's so true. And, I should probably spend more time like gaming my mind, right? And, through visualization or whatever, to like trick myself into thinking that I make 10 million a year. And then all of a sudden it'll just, the wealth thermostat comes up, right?
Yeah, well, that's part of it. And I don't know if you've read Psycho Cybernetics, one of my favorite books I talk about a lot. We're like the heat-seeking missile, and we're never on target. We're always adjusting to that target. And whatever your set point target is, that's what your subconscious mind will lead you to, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So what I teach a lot, and we'll get into limiting belief too, but what I teach a lot is that, we're like an antenna for different vibrations of thoughts and emotions. And when you're in a certain state, in a certain vibration, the way that you look at deals, in NLP, we call that our perceptual filters. When you look at a deal, it's like, it's easy to do. And from a different state, it's like, it's too risky. It doesn't make any sense at all. And so I'm sure you see, as a real estate coach, people come into your system, and some people they're just tuned in and they resonate with doing deals and it's easy. And other people, like, it just doesn't click, even though they both know the same thing, right? And tell me about that pattern.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Before I got into teaching real estate through my own program and everything, I just had no idea. And you don't realize this until you start doing that, but you get a bunch of people into a training program like this, and a percentage of them are going to do really well, really quickly. And then another percentage are just never going to do a deal. And they've got the same information, just like you were just saying, right? They've got the same information, same course, same program, same access to all the training and everything else, but wildly different results. And I wish I could figure out, and maybe you could enlighten me, like, why is that? Like, you were talking about perceptual filters, or I'm not sure if that was the terminology, but
Yeah.
Why is that? Maybe you can school me on that.
Well, so we all perceive the world differently. We all have a history of values and lessons and rules that run our subconscious mind. And when we approach a situation, our subconscious mind assesses everything, and then it gives us a feeling about what to do. So some people come up to a deal and they get a feeling like, I have to do this deal because it equals my freedom. And other people come up to it and they're like, this is all subconscious. They're like, oh, I shouldn't do this deal because if I fail, I'm going to get rejected. It's going to mean this. I'm going to be a loser. I'm going to lose my money. And so we all have different rules as we approach those. And I think recognizing that fear in you and pushing through it is always the key to personal development, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Growing outside your comfort zone. I mean, that fear, man, that was a big thing for me. I mean, I've been a serial entrepreneur for 10, 12 years now. Like ever since I got married and I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it just sets you on that whole other path, right? From working, for an hourly wage to now it's like, you read that book sometimes, some people, and it's like, man, their eyes are open. That's what happened for me. And so I was always like, for years, maybe a decade, trying to figure out how to actually build a business and make some real money. And I had all kinds of fear. And it wasn't until several years into the journey that I realized not only was I afraid of failure, but I was also afraid of success.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time that sounded crazy to me, but now I see it in a lot of people. It's not just me. We have people ask us what if this happens with this deal, or what if that happens, or what if I get, too many deals and I can't handle all the, all the work that comes with having, 15 houses in the portfolio. And then, they have all these fears, and I just ask them well, how many houses do you have now? Well, none. Well, okay, let's go get a few houses and then we'll worry about all that other stuff that may or may not come later. You know what I mean? And so I dealt with that a lot. There's a book I read called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I can't think of it. I think Susan Jeffers. I don't know if you read that book, but the big takeaway for me was, that book showed me how to fully embrace and believe that deep down in my heart, I just believed that no matter what came up, no matter what might come up in the future, I would be able to handle it as it comes. So no matter if it's fear of success or fear of failure, whatever happens, my destiny, so to speak, is not tied to this particular outcome of this particular event. I'm going to handle it, and we're going to make adjustments as we go. Right? You were talking about psycho-cybernetics earlier, and we're always constantly making adjustments. That's how everything is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a good book that I could recommend.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So that fear shows up in our body as a feeling, and that feeling keeps us from taking the actions we want. Now, did you just one day wake up and you're like, oh, that feeling's gone, I'm free? Is it something that you hit that wall every day? You're constantly adjusting and pushing through it? How does that work for you?
I thought that once I had some success that fear would go away, but really it just morphs into fears of other things, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's a constant thing. And it's not so much fear, but it's just you're always going to be stepping outside your comfort zone as long as you're growing. And that's a good thing. I saw a meme or a quote one time that it was some professional video game player who was if video games have taught me anything, it's that the direction I need to be heading is the direction from which all the bad guys are coming and all the enemies and obstacles are coming, right? And I thought that was so profound, right? For, from video games, if you feel fear of doing this one thing, that's probably the thing you need to be doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. Oh, video games can teach us. There's lessons everywhere, right? Everything is a metaphor in life. So one thing that you do, and we're going to talk about Russell Brunson here. You he says if you want people to transform, you got to shatter their limiting beliefs. And so that's kind of been, going through your webinar, going through your course, and seeing you talk about doing deals, and even something as simple as you talk about getting a loan from a seller for 3 years with no interest, where you're just making principal payments. And I'm like, wait, what did you say? And just hearing that shatters my limiting beliefs and it opens me up to what's possible, right? So did you strategically in your course set out to shatter people's limiting beliefs about themselves and about real estate?
I don't think I intentionally did, but if it's a byproduct, then I'll be glad that it is. And it sounds like, at least for you, it has been a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was intentional. Maybe more in the like in the pre-marketing of it, like the webinar and stuff. Because you want to. I mean, that's just part of marketing, and being able to sell this big idea. You got to get people to understand and accept this paradigm shift if you want them to come over to the way you view the world. And then once you've done that for somebody, now they're like, all right, tell me more, man. And they're signing up for your program, if I'm being totally honest.
So I just had like one of the most influential hypnotists in the world, Mike Mandel, on last weekend. And every time I'd ask him a question, he'd tell a story. And he, very hypnotic, and he'd open loops, and he's using metaphors, but that's how our mind works. And so in those webinars, in the course, you're just telling stories about doing deals, and you hear enough of those stories, and your beliefs change, and your subconscious opens you up to new ideas and new ways of acting, right?
Yeah, no, that's totally it. And nowadays, and I'll tell you, my business partner Jeff, who obviously through the training, is one of the mentors in our program, but this is a guy who's 20, 30 years ahead of me on this whole path, right? He's bought and sold 50 businesses and, cashed out for millions of dollars, done thousands of real estate transactions. Like, his wealth thermostat is way up. And so, just me getting to hang around Jeff and everybody else in the program getting to hang around Jeff is a huge benefit and huge win, because now all of a sudden, just by being around him and talking to him and seeing the way he thinks and looks at business, same with how I was with Ron, or same with anybody in the training program, and how we're showing them how to look at deals and that sort of thing. Your mind and the way you perceive deals, like you were talking about, and just perceive business in general, shifts. Like, for example, Jeff, he won't personally, he doesn't get excited about any new business idea unless it's going to net him $1 million within the next a year or two, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's just not going to waste his time on it. Whereas others, just starting out, might be like, man, if I could just make, 100 grand this year, an extra 10 grand a month, they'd be thrilled. It's just it's like a different level. I don't know how else to explain it. Maybe you can do it better.
Well, it's just like I talked about. It's that so the way a radio antenna works, it only picks up the station that it resonates with. So Jeff resonates with deals and making a lot of money. And so the way that he perceives the world, the music that he hears, on his radio is taking actions towards that, because he resonates with those deals. And you could show someone else the same deal with the same knowledge, but if they don't resonate with it, they're not going to take the action to do it, right?
Yeah, no, that's actually very accurate. And because he and I, we do our own house deals together, and he'll look at a deal and think it's just awesome, and I'm over here like, hey, I don't really like that deal. So, but we're going to default to what Jeff says, because
So if you notice, since I joined, I don't think I've missed a call yet, and for me, it's like just being around you guys, hearing this, getting into your, I'm stealing your thought waves, right? Like, when we get into rapport, we start to resonate together, and I pick up on your thought patterns, and then I take that into my business, and I see things in the way that you and Jeff see them, and that helps transform people, not just in real estate, but in everything. And so that's why and you as well, I always surround myself with mentors and models just like you. So
yeah.
So that's definitely an important part. So one thing I want to talk about as well is influence. So I talk a lot about rapport and being able to influence people, because I think that's a big part of personal development. Not only influencing ourselves, but understanding how to influence others. So talk about how some of your philosophies and influence in your real estate business when you're doing deals.
Well, when I'm doing deals, for influencing people, what I found, and this is what I learned from Ron, is the only way you're going to get a deal that you like is by politely and subtly and perhaps subconsciously letting the seller know that you are ready to walk if you don't get the numbers that you want. And there's no other better way to negotiate a deal other than just having them asking you as the buyer, hey, would you take this price? They're making offers to us, right? And so There's another book recently, Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, about negotiating. And the big takeaway from that book for me was the negotiation is the art of letting the other person have your way, right? So you got to let them. So if we're talking about, talking to a seller of a house, we got to let them come around to the solution. Whatever numbers we arrive at, it's got to be the seller's idea, or at least he's got to think that it's his idea. And the way we do that is we just ask questions. We ask them in the right way. And then, the big key, like when you're asking somebody, well, what's the least you could take for the property, is you got to just shut up after you ask them that and let them think. And, if you're on the phone with them, use silence as a weapon, right? Just shut up, let them think. I mean, I've had some long pauses on the phone talking to sellers, and they finally just come around and they say something. And it's like, all right, I can make that work, or no, I can't make that work, but call me back, in a few weeks if you change your mind, that sort of thing. So influence in terms of deal making, that's what that looks like for me. In terms of marketing though, influence is like, that's all we're doing as marketers. Well, I think anybody who's selling anything, and I think everybody is selling something, right? Everybody's selling. Even the stay-at-home moms dealing with their kids, they're selling their kids on doing this or that, right? You gotta, there's all those different factors of influence that Cialdini writes about, and all that sort of thing. But really, from a marketer's perspective, it's all about, can I establish myself as an authority? And easy way to do that is to teach and educate somebody, and then you become an authority in their mind. And then add on top of that some celebrity. Now you're a celebrity authority, and that's like the ultimate positioning, right? And so you can be a celebrity authority to your tiny little market. You don't have to be, on TV or in the movies or anything to have that positioning. And once you've achieved that, and you can do that through, very admirable means by just educating and putting out content out there and that sort of thing, kind of like we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
But once you establish that positioning in the prospect's mind, now, they're much more receptive to hearing what you have to say, and then doing what you want them to do and come into your world even deeper.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. One of the things is I have this technique that I call stealing rapport. And basically, when you have the authority figure, everyone looks at them in a certain way and they value them, and they have a prestige, and what they say goes. Yeah. And so if you can be associated as being close with them or in their circle, you're going to steal the rapport that they have with the rest of the group, right?
Yes.
And so anytime I'm in a room, I'm like, who's the influencer? I use my matching and mirroring skills, get into rapport. And now all of a sudden the rest of the room looks at me like they look at this authority figure, and it works. Yeah. Like it works all the time. One other thing you talked about, that pause in negotiating, right?
Yeah.
So I did this one time, and after about a minute, the lady just hung up on me.
Sounded like she didn't want to do business with you, man.
Didn't want to do the deal. But it's funny because we want people to like us, right? Mm. So it's almost like you're taking rapport away a little bit, and these people are like, they are pulled, because for us, survival, it's getting people to like us is survival. Being accepted by the tribe is survival. And it's much more powerful than money. So in a negotiating situation, if you can make that person want you to like them and want to give in a little bit to do the deal, it's going to be a more powerful influence than money. And so that's what that long pause does, is just allows them to kind of talk their way down to your level, right?
Yeah, that's part of it. And, you talk about, okay, just in the instance of dealing with a seller, yeah, you want them to like us, or you want the seller to like you, because they want to do business with somebody they know, like, and trust, right?
Yeah.
But in my view, the seller's not there to make a new friend. You're not there to make a new friend. And you hear all these like wholesalers and other real estate investors out there, they'll like go to the seller's house, spend 3 or 4 hours with them, just hanging out, becoming friends, building rapport, right?
Yeah.
To get the deal. And that probably works some of the time, and other times it doesn't. But to me, it just sounds like a big waste of time. Like, I'm not there to make a friend, and neither is the seller. Like, I'm there to do business with them. Now, that doesn't mean I don't want them to like me, right? Of course, we want them to like us. But that doesn't mean I have to be their friend and hang out with them for 4 hours. And, this is something I hear from other wholesalers a lot, is like they'll go spend 4 hours with the seller, and then the seller ends up selling to some other investor. right? Like the next week, because they didn't push hard enough, right? They didn't get the paperwork done while they were there at the house, that sort of thing. So I think that kind of rapport can be built very quickly. And you talked about a lot of strategies, mirroring and all that other stuff that could probably do it a lot more quickly than 4 hours hanging out on the couch at the seller's house, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely want to get into rapport, but you could do that in, 5 minutes on a phone call if you wanted to.
Yeah, and so that kind of segues into the next thing that just kind of organically came up for me is we have a lot of beliefs about time and how time works and how long it takes to do something that affects the actions that we take. So I posted on my Facebook wall the other day something about, do I have any friends that have gone for a get-rich-quick scheme and has it worked? Yeah. And, someone's like, no, that never works. And you said, well, something to the effect of, if you believe it takes a long time to make money, it's going to take a long time to make money, right?
Yeah.
And I think, if you believe it takes a long time to build rapport, it's going to take a long time to build rapport. And with hypnotists, a lot of times they think that change is slow, or, it's going to take 10 sessions. And I have friends that get rid of chronic pain in 5 minutes. It's all based on our beliefs. And so the beliefs that you have about real estate investing are that it's quick and easy, and that shows up in your entire system, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I remember that post you did on Facebook the other day. I thought that was an interesting post to see other people's responses there. But man, it's so true. Like that Henry Ford quote, like if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I'm always looking for some cool new angle to, make more money in my business or just make more money in general. And I'm open to some crazy idea. I just saw a post from another Facebook acquaintance this morning. It's basically like a sales letter in his post. He's pitching this new seminar he was going to be holding in Vegas, but the whole pitch is how to use and calculate and, look at the phases of the moon and how that can influence sports betting. So you can go make a ton of money on sports betting, using these spreadsheets and the phases of the moon and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, that sounds really interesting. Now, having said that, I just mentioned that to my wife. I said, would you think it was crazy if I went to Vegas to learn how to do sports betting based on moon phases? And she's like, yeah, that's a little bit out there, Blair. But I'm like, dude, that sounds awesome. Why wouldn't we go check that out? To me, that sounds like, I don't know. And, a lot of people, and I guess I'm just trying to use this as an example of, if you look at something like that and you're like, nah, that'll never work. Well, you're right. It never will work for you if you don't believe it. But I'm trying to keep an open mind because, if I can go put another $1 million in my pocket over the next year, just doing some sports betting on the side with a few spreadsheets in the moon phase calendar,
even if you learn one thing about the phase of the moon or psychology, or, how emotions are affected by, you can apply that to your life, right? And so I remember on our call the other day, I set an intention to just have one thing, to learn one thing from the call that was going to change my perspective on the business, right? I went in with that perspective and I got it. And so I think, when we go in to learn anything, if you're there's one thing in here and you believe that, you're going to find that one thing that's going to change your business, right?
Yeah, totally. I think I remember that call the other day and I said, man, I am a course and seminar junkie. I buy this stuff all the time. Jeff makes fun of me for it sometimes, but it's that whole idea. If I could just get one golden nugget out of this thing, it'd be worth it.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I look at it. And I don't know, maybe someday I'll tamp down a little bit on how many courses and seminars I go to. But right now I'm just dude, I want to absorb everything I can. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, of course, because I think I'm in the middle of probably 8 books right now and 3 courses that, yours I've been through. I have one module, the pay-per-click stuff to implement, but yours I've been through and I'm working, but the rest of it, I kind of, come and go in and out of, and I'm picking up stuff here and there, and I'm just always learning. So I definitely share that with you. And that's part of the reason I wanted to bring you on, is to help us understand the mindsets with real estate investing. So let's get down to a couple little tips for those people who maybe are in your system, maybe are doing their own real estate investing, and they're finding themselves hesitating, or they just haven't gotten that level of success yet. What are some mindset shifts we can leave them with to push through that fear?
Yeah, I think one of the best and biggest and most important mindset shifts that happens with any real estate investor is once they get their first deal done, right? That is a huge milestone for so many people. And I can remember very clearly, like the first time, like I'd done a few wholesale deals a long time ago, but the first time I did a terms deal from start to finish and I put a $20,000 check in my bank account on a house that, I didn't have to come up with any money, and now I still own the house. I get all the cash flow. Like, you know, man, it was like a light bulb went off. It was like everything clicked for me all of a sudden. And then I looked at, everything I had done up until that point, and I thought to myself, man, this really wasn't that hard at all. Like, all the stuff that the real estate gurus talk about from stage or on webinars and all that stuff, like, oh, it's so easy to make millions of dollars, blah, 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 all this stuff. And you're like, yeah, right. It sounds like total BS. I see now why they say all that, because it's totally true. Like after that first deal, I went back to one of Ron's events and I got up on stage and shared my experience. I said, everything this man says is true. Okay. Like I know it sounds crazy. If you've never done a deal, if you've never got seller financing or took over somebody's loan or creative financing, all that stuff, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds like using phases of the moon to make $1 million in sports betting, right? It sounds crazy and ridiculous, but everything that I've learned in real estate, like, man, there is a world of opportunity there. And so when you shift your mindset from, oh, you can't do that, I can't do this, oh man, this is really hard. If you just get out of your own way and just do what, whatever program you're going through, just do what it says. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Stop trying to add your own spin to it. I did that for a long time and I struggled. And it wasn't until I finally just surrendered. And I said, it's kind of like the whole, surrendering to God, like,
yeah,
Father, just show me what to do here. I give up. I'm sick of trying to, control this. And it's at those points when you finally have that breakthrough, right? And you just like, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to do exactly what my mentor showed me to do or told me to do. And then it starts working. And then you look back at, you're holding that check in your hand and it's like, well, that wasn't so hard. What was I so worried about? Like, it's so true. And if somebody has never experienced that, it's really hard for them to imagine that. But, once you get that first deal done or your first terms deal done, I hope everybody has that light bulb moment, that click in their head. And it's like, it's life-changing, man. It's great.
That's cool. And one thing you mentioned is, and I talk about this, is, the universe is balance, right? It's all about balance. And so you have to have that, the masculine structure drive, get stuff done, but you also have to have that, feminine surrender and allow, right? And those two things are, equally powerful. And if you don't have, I know a lot of people that are, all surrender and allow and flow and, they don't have money. And then I know people who have the structure and the drive, and a lot of times they block themselves from seeing opportunity or from things coming to them because they don't have that balance. So some of that structure and surrender, I know it's a little bit deeper, but it's good to be aware of that in your own life, right?
Yeah, I love how you put that though, because it's so true. If you're just waiting around for stuff to happen, you're just surrendering all the time, nothing's going to happen most of the time anyway. But then the opposite of that is true. If you got a high driver, I think of car sales professionals, they're out there humping and grinding and they're making money. But if they would just surrender a little bit more, they'd make a lot more money. You know what I mean? So I definitely see what you mean there.
Yeah. And that attachment that we have to getting that first deal done and getting that check, it often shows up in our language and our physiology, and it pushes sellers away a lot of times, right? When we have that attachment. So just being able to release that, go with the process, and face your fears and just keep pushing through it, right?
That's right, man. And that's the thing. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
The fear tells you which way to go, right? Just go for it,
right?
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know. I sent this out a while ago, but and maybe you've seen this too. But that video of Steve Harvey backstage talking about you just got to jump. Sometimes, eventually, you're just gonna have to jump off the cliff. All right. And here's the bad news, everybody. Your parachute is not going to open right away. You're going to get beat up a little bit, but eventually that parachute is going to open and you're going to be soaring, right? But if you never jump, you're never going to be soaring like all these other guys you see out there. It's so true.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So Blair, where can people find you?
Just at my website, blairhalver.com. It's BLAIRHALVER.com.
Okay. Well, we'll send them that way. That link will be in the show notes. And again, I just want to say that the course has been amazing so far. All the things have been implemented in my life. Leads are coming into me. I'm doing deals, so I'm having a great time with it. And I look forward to seeing you on our call tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Thanks, Blair. Bye.